Debate on budget, debate on vote number 35, Science and Innovation Appropriation Bill.
Director General of the Department of Science and Innovation, Dr. Civili, present today. All our entities and organizations making up our national system. Honorable members and honorable guests and those who have joined us through other platforms. This is the 5th installation of the Department of Science and Innovation presentation and the 6th. The theme for our budget vote today is using science, technology, and innovation to grow our country and together resolve its challenges. In the current financial year, we will continue to science, technology, innovation, STI in short, table plan through the STI budget coordination mechanism with the table say. We will upscale the implementation of the innovation fund in order to support the early development and expansion stages of technology-based South African firms. We also remain resolute to increase gross domestic investment in research and development as a percentage of gross domestic product with the aim of achieving the NDP's target of 1.5. Through the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, we've unlocked the potential of new sources of clean energy to facilitate a just transition from a carbon-intensive to a carbon-neutral economy. We've also registered the Hydrogen Value Program in Infrastructure South Africa under Strategic Integrated Projects in December 2022. We've also registered the Hydrogen Value Program with Infrastructure South Africa under Strategic Integrated Projects in December 22 again. Through the Coal CO2X project, we've supported a carbon capture and utilization technology which captures carbon dioxide from flue gas and then converts it into a fertilizer sold using ammonia. This technology was successfully demonstrated at a cement plant in Limpopo this year, January 2023. To date, we have invested 50 million rand in this project, which has allowed local small, medium, and micro enterprises to put in place partnerships to demonstrate the potential of flue gas conversion technology at the plant. We'll be finalizing, I'm pleased to say, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, our master plan in the establishment of a national solar research facility that will support the development, commercialization, and deployment of solar-based technologies for application in both the solar power and fuel sectors in order to facilitate the movement of technology from laboratory to market. We are also reviewing our water research, development, and innovation roadmap with a view of improving our investments for greater impact in the water sector. One of our major preoccupations is to develop an STI roadmap towards a circular economy, given the pressure of finite natural resources
unit responsible for investigating cases of non-compliance with the SIRA Act and Firearms Control Act within the private security industry. To this effect, SIRA seeks to enforce compliance of all withdrawn or liquidated security companies' licenses to possess firearms. Community mobilization and the resourcing of the CPFs. In realizing the theme for this year, combating crime through decisive police action and robust community involvement, policing communities and policing with communities remains the backbone of our policing direction going forward. We therefore call upon communities to embrace and throw their full weight behind the police to turn the tide of crime and create safer communities. Honorable Chairperson, to this end, 70 million is allocated to the provinces to support community policing forum in terms of resourcing requirements. This funding is assisting the CPFs with resources such as vehicles, laptops, torches, reflective jackets, and other tools of trade. In addition to the above, 5 million is also provided for community interaction in terms of Zimbizo awareness campaign summits and conferences working with communities. Honorable members, during the 2022 MTEF budget, additional funding of 5.7 billion was allocated to SEBS that allowed the department to enlist 12,000 employees to maintain the staff establishment of 179,502 employees in total. A total of 10,000 police trainees have been enlisted in the 23-24 financial year, with the additional funds allocated in the previous and current budget allocation to SEBS. A total of 10,000 police trainees will be recruited annually to the next 2 financial years. That includes those that are at college as we speak as a second consecutive year, which will bring a total of 30,000 new police recruitment in the MTSF period. We are calling on all South Africans from all walks of life to join the SEBS. The police service remains an organization of choice for all South Africans, regardless of color, race, and their background. Chairperson, the detective environment remains critical in the investigation of crime and overall improvement within the criminal justice system. In this regard, the action plan rigorously addresses the state of the detectives to improve the detection rate and finalization of the caseload per detective and station level. This includes a progressive retention and promotional strategy in this regard. A significant portion of more than 20% of the overall police budget is allocated to the detective services, while 28.8% or 2,880 new recruits that from the 10,000 are designated to be trained as detectives. To further boost the investigative capacity of the SEBS, the police management is re-enlisting and inviting back experienced members of the service in good standing who can contribute to the detective services following the necessary 3-month retraining. Capacitation of crime intelligence remain a priority, while the strengthening of functionalities pertaining to this cybercrime and specialized multidisciplinary units are equally prioritized. In our efforts to continue with implementation of Falam Commission recommendations tabled, funding has been set aside to continue to capacitate the existing public order policing. To date, an additional 4,000 of POP have been trained. Honorable members, the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, DPCI, baseline allocation is sustained during the financial year. Strengthening the capacity of the DPCI continues to yield positive results in the investigation of high-profile cases. Currently, there are initiatives to address the deficiencies that were identified by the Financial Action Task Team, TAFT, that are aimed at accelerating the implementation of TAFT standards and methodologies with SEBS. The TAFT recommendation place emphasis on attending to the money laundering and terror financing. The DPCI, in consultation with the role players, which are NPA, FIC, and SSA, have compiled an action plan for implementation in the first quarter of 23-24 to deal with the recommendation of the fund. Meanwhile, the DPCI have 51 cases, dockets, inquiries on hand, from which 26 arrests related to the state capture were affected. While the cases emanating from July unrest have not yet been concluded in court, 65 accused are being considered for the additional charges of terrorism. The DPCI is working with detectives, crime intelligence, and the National Prosecution Authority to bring the cases to the logical conclusion. Moreover, of the 149 Truth and Reconciliation Commission cases investigated by contracted former police officers, 81 inquests have been enrolled, with 15 dockets have been sent to the NPA. The Hawks National Head Office established a National Clean Audit Task Team to specifically deal with fraud, corruption, money laundering, and contravention of the Municipality Financial Act in identifying municipalities. During investigation, more than 54 million of assets retrained and recoveries have been effected, with a total of 81 individuals and total 9 entities arrested. That has happened. Chairperson, the Hawks continue to make serious inroads in dismantling of drug syndicates. To this end, the Serious Organized Crime Investigation registered 20 projects, which saw 27 drug laboratories discovered and dismantled, and 45 individuals arrested. They also registered 5 projects to deal with illegal mining, where property worth 13 million was preserved. In the last financial year, the Hawks arrested 339 suspects for precious metals and diamonds. They also secured convictions of 92 accused persons. As an example, I shall reflect on the following 3 cases. Those cases are 15 AK-47 600 rifles shortcoming and 5 rifles, 1,000 of ammunition, explosive, and cash were seized. The accused are appearing in court as we speak. 87 illegal miners, 87 of them have been sentenced to 6 years and 8 years individual. All accused remain in custody. Arrested in March 2023, they were sentenced to a 696 years imprisonment by Stilfontein Regional Court. In Kusong and Carltonville, Gauteng, the 7 suspects alleged to have been buying gold-bearing materials from the Zama-Zama's process it and sell it to the next level in the hierarchy. These cases are still in court. Honorable members, the status of the historic DNA backlog at 241,152 cases in the first quarter of 21-22 financial year has been reduced. As of today, the DNA backlog is only 636 that is left from the 241. That is a 99.70 achievement. Biology and Environment of South African received and registered 338,439 new cases exhibit and finalized 525,000 cases exhibits. We are keeping that capacity that we have created to achieve this so that this never happens again. The finalization rate has increased progressively from 21% in 21-22 financial year to over 131 the end of this financial year. The SAPS is also implementing similar measures and the turnaround strategies to tackle delays in processing of ballistic and chemistry samples. Since the establishment of project in conjunction with the NPA in July, a total of 31,259 gender-based violence and femicide-related court-ready cases have been successfully enrolled. In order to further increase SAPS forensic investigation footprint in the country, a newly refurbished and expanded forensic laboratory is to be opened by His Excellency the President very soon. The investigative footprint is resulting in the revamping of the forensic laboratory in KZN. An action plan has been developed that aims to respond to crimes related to GBV, vulnerable groups, and sexual offenses. This plan also focuses on the resourcing of the FCS units, both national and provincial levels, with a total of 1.3 billion for both proactive and reactive responses when it comes to the GBF. That's how serious we are when it comes to these cases. Honorable members, improving the police service through skills development is being prioritized. The department is putting in place a number of interventions in addition to the annual cost of living adjustment to enhance the working conditions for the employees. Employees are having the chance to advance in their careers. To enhance the overall compensation package for the impacted employees, allowance in particular environment are also reviewed. The multi-year SSBC agreement signed with the organized labor in 2018 on the backlog of employees to qualify for grade progression was honored and concluded in 2022. Since then, more than 58,000 employees, constables, sergeants, and warrant officers levels were promoted in terms of this grade progression. SAPS has reprioritized funding human resources activities in order to fund and increase the service allowance. The SAPS service allowance has therefore increased from 400 per month to 700 per month on April a month. We have moved from 400 to 700, and with the back paid from the April last year of those members. Honorable members, this increase is a major shift from the service allowance, which had remained unchanged since the dawn of democracy. Now more funding is prioritized from the current baseline, and this will be reviewed on the regular basis in consultation with labor. The SAPS officers involved in corruption are subject to enhanced disciplinary measures to ensure that they are held accountable for their action and to prevent any further corruption within SAPS. In order to effectively manage disciplinary processes, awareness raising measures are put in place and specialized disciplinary units are established on the nation. Honorable members, in advancing efforts of the institutionalizing discipline in the police, equally the IPIT remains a significant oversight body and mandated by Section 206 of the Constitution. The existence of the IPIT aims to ensure that the police execute their mandate within ambit of the law. The IPIT continues to operate independently while ensuring their approach executing their mandate is corrective, not punitive. The amendment of the IPIT Act is underway and the Civilian Secretariat has done so. Meanwhile, consequences management is implemented decisively to managers that are not fit for the purpose. The SAPS continue to invest in the acquisition of appropriate technology for the use in crime prevention, criminal investigation, and intelligence. This includes the purchase of unmanned aerial vehicles, those are drones, body-worn cameras, as well as shot spotters in high-density crime areas. To date, SAPS training more officers to be licensed to fly these drones. Honorable members, allow me to take this opportunity and thank Parliament for passing the relevant legislation on the usage of the interception and surveillance devices that have been gazetted already. Private sector partnership aimed at improving policing also being intensified, and of the response plan to prevent and combat crime. The existing collaboration in other provinces yielding a very good positive results. The results from the survey are to be used to enhance service delivery and to ensure that the public receive best possible experience at our police station. Additional 25 million rand is also allocated to provinces to the enhancement of the safeguard of the police station. We call on police to be more vigilant as police attacks and killings are on the increase. We also urge communities to support police safety efforts. Chairperson, departments spending over the medium term is in relation to the core programs with visible policing consisting of 51% on the total vote of 23-24. The SAPS has been allocated more than 1.8 billion for the procurement of transport assets. Meanwhile, other area to contribute to improve service delivery is a rapid response capacity and accessibility to the policing services. During the State of the Nation address on the 10th February, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa issued a call action noting that we use our competitiveness in call center operation to support the proper functioning of the 10,111 numbers. The South African Police Service has therefore, through the announcement of the President, engaged the Office of the President to explore the opportunities that Operate Vulindlela can provide in addressing of these shortcomings. Chairperson, a proposal has already been approved, which consists of 3 phases and work already underway to improve the functioning of the 10,111. We will be building the police station, Chair, and more than 1 billion has been put aside to make sure that this happens. Chairperson, there will be 13 police stations that will be handed over to the communities this financial year that have been built and finalized. Honorable members, fighting crime must be intensified through government cluster work, facilitating legislative reform. That is in the document passed by the cabinet, which has 6 pillars that all members of the government must follow to fight crime. Chairperson, I present to you the South African Police Service Budget Vote 28 for the financial year 23-24 to the amount of 102,137,000. The independent police investigation 350.
Order, honorable members.
The Department of Civilian Secretariat 150 million. Chairperson, I would really love to thank all those people that we have worked and served together, starting with the Deputy Minister, the Chair, the General Fani, the Chief of Staff, the Acting Secretary, the Head of IPID, and those that work with Syria, led by Advocate Chauke, Godfrey Libya, the Head of Hawks, Raymond Sono, who works with the DNA, the judge, and then Ms. Shandu, who works with firearms, and my family, led by my wife Tembeka Cele, who has kept me sane under these trying conditions. I thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Order, honorable members. Before I recognize the next speaker, order. I wish to acknowledge the presence of a delegation of members of the Public Petitions Committee of the National Assembly of the Parliament of Kenya, led by the Honorable Chairperson of the committee, the Honorable Nimrod. They are sitting at the back. Welcome to Parliament. Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Jumat Peterson.
Honorable Chair of Chairs, Minister of Police, Honorable General Cele, the Deputy Minister of Police and other Deputy Ministers present, the National Police Commissioner, our parliamentary delegation from Kenya, the National Head for the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigations, Deputy National Commissioners, Acting Secretary of Police as the Civilian Secretariat, Executive Director of IPID, the Chairperson and board members, as well as the Director of CIRA, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee on Police, our Whip, Honorable Siabe in particular, all our men and women in blue. Good afternoon. Dumelang. I'm honored to introduce the budget reports of the South African Police Service, the Civilian Secretariat, and the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. We had robust engagements, we had disagreements, but we found solutions. We had these engagements with departments during the recently conducted budget hearings. It wasn't easy. We have consolidated, however, our democratic gains and exercised our role of parliamentary oversight. We have furthered the goals of our national democratic revolution through a transparent budgeting process. Allow me to quote an extract from the article by the president of the ANC Youth League, Comrade Anton Lembede, in January 1947. It is imperatively necessary to mobilize the nation in all its ramifications, men, women, and young people. It is an incontrovertible and unchallengeable fact that the leaders of tomorrow will be recruited from the youth of today. It is therefore extremely urgent and important for the future of our national democratic revolution that we produce more leaders than followers. The aggressive recruitment of 20,000 youth through the approval of the SAP's budget marks the most historical and progressive step in the fight against youth unemployment in our country. We welcome this initiative by our minister and our government in response to escalating crime levels and youth unemployment. The recruits were selected from 1 million applicants. They formed 2% of the very best. They went through a rigorous selection process. They were vetted. They are the cream of the crop, and we salute them. But they represent a new generation of police service that will enhance the image of police and build trust. They can fight, produce, and learn at the same time. They can shoot and learn at the same time. The trainees receive a stipend of 4,500 Rand. They are placed at the police station. They receive medical aid, free tuition, free meals, free uniforms, free accommodation, but nothing for Mala. They must produce and they must study and they must come out better. 7 million Rand is spent in the local economy in Kimberley monthly. The Kimberley area benefits from this input into the economy. SMMEs are benefiting from the food that's procured, provisions that's procured, and once a month, these recruits not only spend their money at Pick n Pay, they send their money home. Their first income producers. SAPS, Minister, we are calling for gender parity in those recruitment process. The SAPS future is a future which belongs to all the youth, black and white. We also encourage people from other communities, irrespective of race, to join the police force. It is with immense gratitude to the Honorable President Matamela Ramaphosa for spearheading this initiative. We should call these 20,000 recruits the Ramaphosa SAPS detachment, and we mean this, honorable members. The young men and women are the future of our police service. We urge those new recruits, pledge and swear your allegiance to the Constitution. Do not become corrupt. Do not arrive at work drunk, under the influence of alcohol. We don't want to see TikTok videos of you sleeping. We are indeed the Anton Lembede generation, and as Anton Lembede had implored us, we are producing, Minister, a second layer of young leaders in SAPS. 60,000 non-commissioned officers received an increase. It's a 75% increase. It's significant. Honorable Minister, members, Chair of Chairs, we now have a clean audit. We want to say that through the persistent monitoring of the department's action plan, we received an unqualified audit in 2021, and we're convinced that we will receive an unqualified audit again this year. Wait, let me tell you this. We waited with bated breath for this national shutdown. The shutdown did not materialize. It did not happen. What did, however, materialize was the strong cooperation of departments in the JCPS cluster. We witnessed a well-developed operational response plan, which was meticulously executed. DNA analysis backlog, we sustained pressure on SAPs. The backlog stood at almost 250,000 in February 23. It has been reduced by 1,600. We have improved our fight against gender-based violence and femicide. In May 21, we visited the Central Firearm Registry and in the Veritas building. We were alarmed, we were shocked, we were outraged. Subsequently, we had another visit there. 30 million was ring-fenced to improve and finalize firearm applications. The committee can proudly report that there has been a significant improvement and progress. The digitalization of all files at the CFR is currently underway. Honorable Chair, the committee unanimously approved the adoption of the amendments made to the Paktatara Act. This bill was instrumental in addressing the technical compliance deficiencies as highlighted by the Financial Action Task Force. The committee's commitment to consider the bill addressed compliance deficiencies related to counterterrorism. I wish to thank the leaders of the opposition, members of the opposition, for unanimously supporting us on this bill. Under your leadership, Minister, the DPCI will further intensify its efforts to address the deficiencies highlighted by the FAFT. The committee will work closely with National Treasury to ensure that South Africa is removed from grey listing. The investigations by the DPCI into the commission or inquiry into allegations of state capture, corruption and fraud in the public sector is well on its way. We commend General Libya and his team for the progress which has been made in investigations from these recommendations. We hope, however, that this leads to arrests and that this actually leads to more action. It must remain our priority until all perpetrators of state capture are brought to book and brought back to the country. Our fight against crime and corruption remains our priority. The South African Police Service Act provides for two key voluntary structures in policing, namely community police forums and reservists. The individuals serving on these structures serve voluntarily, and they are vital to building trust between communities and the police. The Honorable President, in his State of the Nation address, highlighted the importance of the CPFs. Honorable President emphasized that these structures are essential in forming partnerships with communities to fight violence and address the scourge of GBV and femicide. In response to this clarion call by the President, the SAPS has held a productive community policing in Daba, in which many gains were made, and thank you, Minister, for that allocation you committed today. As the Honorable President stated in his 2023 SONA, we must bring economic sabotage and organized crime under control to secure our infrastructure and our economy. Commercial crimes such as cable theft have a significant effect on our electricity system and contribute to load shedding. The SAPS has established a dedicated team with senior leadership to deal with the pervasive corruption and theft at several Eskom power stations. In this regard, it is imperative for the 2019 Protection of Criminal Infrastructure Act and the Critical Infrastructure Council, which has been established under the Act, to come into operation. We should also consider power stations as national key points, and they should be guarded and protected accordingly. The continuous influx of illegal foreigners must be addressed to the JCPS cluster and SARS. We want to clearly state that we are not against economic migrants, but we must be done legally and responsibly. Undocumented foreigners have a devastating impact on crime in general, but specifically on illegal mining. Last year, we conducted various joint oversight visits with the Portfolio Committee on Minerals and Energy. The influx of cross-border contraband, especially illegal cigarettes, is having a devastating impact on our tax revenue. We congratulate the improvements in crime intelligence and the appointment of a new divisional commissioner. SAPS is currently resourcing its prioritized specialized capabilities over the medium term, including the DPCI and cybercrime. The committee will consider the IPID amendment bill, and the entire committee has implored us to complete this bill during this term. We'll do our best to do so. I want to thank the Secretariat for Police for the hard work. We commend the steps taken by our beloved President to strengthen the capacity of the state, thus enhancing our ability to fight crime and corruption. We wish to thank the Minister for his decisive leadership in advancing the national democratic revolution in our pursuit of the noble objectives of a truly united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and crime-free South Africa. I wish to thank the Deputy Minister, the National Commissioner and his team for their tireless efforts in leading a coherent approach in our fight against crime and corruption. I wish to thank CIRA, the Civilian Secretariat, and the IPID Executive Director. Thank our committee staff, as well as the staff of the Minister and the Deputy Minister, the staff of the ANC study group, who worked relentlessly and tirelessly to ensure that we fulfill our oversight mandate. Committee members, especially our whip in particular, you championed the process of renewal and SAPS and focus on the task at hand without the unnecessary barriers of party political posturing. I thank even the members of the opposition for this. We thank our members, men and women in blue. Today we have more women, men as provincial commissioners. Today we have more women as deputy national commissioners. We have more women. We also have a woman as the executive director of IPID, Malibongwe. We support this bill as the ANC. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Whitfield.
Thank you, Chairperson. Allow me to begin by expressing my sincere condolences on behalf of the Democratic Alliance to all of the families who have lost loved ones in service of our country through the South African Police Service. We stand together with the hard-working, honest, and professional police officers who put their lives on the line every single day to protect their fellow citizens. This shocking spike in police killings underscores, perhaps more than anything else, the near complete collapse of our security establishment in the country. When criminals don't fear consequences from the state, they become emboldened to commit more crime and even to attack the state itself by killing our police officers. So I'd like to take this opportunity to call on the Minister, who was silent in this regard during his budget speech, to commit meaningful action to his tough talk in previous budget speeches, where he has mentioned in every other budget speech his condolences to these police officers. What we now need is tangible plans, Minister, to turn the situation around. Solutions to the problem, not just tough talk. Budget speech after budget speech since your appointment in 2018 have left South Africans with a trail of broken promises and higher levels of violent crime. In the last 5 years, there has not been a demonstrable improvement in outcomes that make South Africans safer. And if South Africans are not safe, they are not free. Safety is a prerequisite for progress and prosperity. It is the foundation upon which citizens can pursue their dreams and realize their talents. Without safety, our nation will never prosper. The National Development Plan tells us that, and I quote, in 2030, people living in South Africa feel safe at home, at school and at work, and they enjoy a community life free of fear. Women walk freely in the streets and children play safely outside. The police service is well-resourced and professional, staffed by highly skilled officers who value their work, serve the community, safeguard lives and property without discrimination, protect the peaceful against violence, and respect the rights to equality and justice. End quote. Honorable members, this is a nice vision. 2030 is just 6 years away, and South Africa's safety and security environment has deteriorated dramatically in the last 10 years since the NDP was adopted by government. It is safe to say that the vision of the NDP will not be realized because government has been soft on crime and softer on the causes of crime. We have a government that talks tough and acts soft, a government that has lost control of law and order and allowed criminals to run rampant across our communities. Minister, when you took office in 2018, the president promised to halve violent crime in a decade. Halfway through that decade, and violent crime is on the increase, with murder up 20% since 2018. Violent crimes against women and children continue unabated. Organized criminal syndicates have become more sophisticated and better resourced than our own state security agencies, resulting in kidnappings, for example, having nearly doubled from 5,693 when you took office to nearly 11,000 in this last financial year. In every budget speech since your appointment as minister, you've dedicated your department's budget to the fight against gender-based violence, yet murders of women and children have increased by 28% and 17% respectively, and the conviction rate is dismal. We have repeatedly heard the president promise more boots on the ground, but this too has become a broken promise. In 2011-12, 10 years ago, the SAPS had 157,518 SAPS Act members. This decreased to 140,048 in 2022. These are the real numbers of the boots on the ground. And while you will inevitably stand up at the end of this debate and tell us of the thousands of new recruits to be deployed, you won't tell us about the net loss in personnel as a result of the restructuring of SAPS, which is seeing numbers, skills, and experience being lost every single year. And if you want proof of this claim, then you need look no further than your own budget. In this budget, compensation of employees has decreased despite promises of increased recruitment. In real terms, the budget for compensation of employees has decreased by nearly 5 billion rand compared to the previous financial year. Less money means less boots on the ground. Visible policing receives more than half of the budget's allocation of the department's budget allocation. Yet when you talk to community members across the country, they will tell you they never see the police and that it would be more appropriate to name this program invisible policing. What is shocking is that for the third consecutive year, the largest decrease in this department's budget is within this core service delivery program at a whopping 3.3 billion rand. Our detectives are overworked and underpaid, with almost every single detective that I speak to telling me that they have well over 200 dockets on their desk at any given time. We are losing valuable skills and experience in detective services because these SAPS members don't feel valued or supported. The result of this is a continued decline in performance in this program, a subsequent decline in detection rates. It's the reason we see low conviction rates, resulting in criminals no longer fearing the criminal justice system due to the low probability, almost extinct probability, that they will ever face consequences. Our CPFs are not adequately resourced, and while the 70 million rand committed by the minister is welcomed, it is unlikely to filter down to every single CPF in the country. The reality for CPF members is that they too put their lives on the line with little to no protection, and in many cases, no glow-in-the-dark vests. So many CPF members complain that SAM simply doesn't attend meetings, refuses to convene elections. In Ekomani, Queenstown, in the Eastern Cape, some CPF sectors are recognized while others are not. This is contrary to the ethos of community and partnership policing, and it must be addressed with urgency. The SAPS Reservist program has been completely gutted since 2011-12. There are 90% less reservists today than they were in 2011-12, from 52,000 down to less than 5,000 in just 10 years. The department needs to urgently develop that plan, Minister, to recruit retired police officers to come and bolster the ranks. But what we really need is to make sure that we bolster that reservist program as a force multiplier in our communities, particularly in rural communities, which are under siege from violent criminals against the failure of the SAPS rural safety strategy. All of the indicators which point to the realization of a safer South Africa for all and the fulfillment of the NDP are failing. The budgets over the last 5 years have not matched the promises, nor do they support the plans. And the facts? Well, the facts speak for themselves. South Africans will not forgive this government for compromising their safety and security and that of future generations. In 2024, the people of South Africa will rise up and vote for a safer South Africa under a new government with a DA.
Honorable member, your time is now expired. EFF.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, this year marks 10 years since the establishment of the economic emancipation movement. In the founding manifesto of the EFF, we note how the ruling party has abandoned its historical mission for the emancipation of African people, and how they have over the years relinquished control over the country back to those against whom we fought. The general state of policing in the country is a reflection of that neglect of the key fundamentals of governance by the ruling clique. The police meant to be protecting our people from criminals and themselves, not distinguishable from the criminals that they are meant to be fighting. Take the example of the murder of the anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinnear here in Cape Town. A careful look to this case will show that the police have been infested, captured, and redirected by a powerful group of gangsters in the Western Cape. And that these gangsters use the police to fight against the law-abiding policemen and women in this country. Detective Kinnear found himself a victim of this collusion between the police and the criminal elements in Cape Town. But there are many cases such as this across the country. Minister Cele knows about this and yet has decided to turn a blind eye to the criminalization of the SAPS. Chairperson, while SAPS and its senior leaders are colluding with criminals, South African society is suffocating from the crime. In just a 3-month period between October and December, 7,555 people were murdered in this country, and there were 7,016 cases of attempted murder. There were over 15,000 cases of reported sexual offenses, which includes 12,419 cases of rape. These are just reported cases, and it has become common knowledge in this country that there are thousands more cases of sexual offenses that never get reported to the police. There were over 50,000 cases of assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. Of the reported cases of murder, 319 of them were murder of children. And over 2,000 children were assaulted with intent to do grievous bodily harm. This translates into over 82 murders every single day in this country and about 169 sexual offenses a day. This is not a normal society. There is something inherently wrong with a state that allows the proliferation of crime and disorder, the way the ruling party has allowed crime to flourish in this country. We have become a criminal society, and crime is enabled implicitly and explicitly by the state. The South African Police Service's DNA laboratory service has collapsed, leading a compromising thousands of cases of sexual cases which cannot be provided without DNA evidence. The Central Firearm Registry has collapsed, and this failure is directly linked to the proliferation of illegal firearms in the country. In a nutshell, Chairperson, we have no police in this country. The police have been captured by sectional interests of their leaders and the criminal interests of the gangsters they reported to. This needs cleaning up from the top, Minister Cele. It's incapable of providing the kind of leadership needed to deal with the problems to the police space. He is one of the most incompetent ministers we have in this country. And there is no hope of even dealing with the crime as long as he is in the minister. The IPID has no teeth ever since the ruling party removed Robert McBride and has been captured by the police to protect their criminal ways. The Criminal Secretariat for Police is merely used to dishing out favorites and tenders to their ANC comrades. Chairperson, we need to rethink our policing strategy before the entire country becomes a den of criminals. Minister Cele must be fired. The current commissioner of the SAPS suspended for incompetence.
Order, honorable members, order.
We need capable men and women to lead this institution. Otherwise, we are doomed. The amount of the police we saw during the shutdown immediately disappeared to look after our women and children who die in the streets in numbers every day. The issue of the security clearance, Honorable Minister, to the senior management of the SAPS, it's a worrying factor. Because those managers are made to handle classified documents and a huge budget in the country, is one of the SAPS. Detectives need to be motivated. For instance, create team buildings. Give them incentives. Give them promotions. They must have competitions amongst each other from the station level up to the national level, Honorable Minister. We therefore reject this vote. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Majosi. Order, honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. As the IFP, we are concerned with the state of the finances of the Department of Police. The recent SAPS annual report 2021-2022 states confirmed fruitless and wasteful expenditure for the reporting period was 621,439,000. According to the Auditor General, the situation is much worse, with fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 1.8 billion still under assessment. Further effective and appropriate steps were not taken to prevent irregular expenditure of 152 million, and consequence management was not effected against officials who incurred and permitted irregular expenditure in the previous period. We therefore, as the IFP, call on the SAPS to get their house in order, to supply accurate and complete financial records on time, and abide and implement all recommendations of the Auditor General. As the IFP, we want to remind this House that the revised medium-term strategic framework identifies 5 fundamental goals for the period of 2019 to 2024, which include violent crime will be halved. Sadly, the SAPS do not appear to be on track. From 2020, 2021 to 2021, 2022, murder increased by 26.6%, rape by 15.2%, and carjacking by 24.7%. The list goes on and on. We do not hold much hope for the future, considering that the most recent crime statistics shared by Minister Cele in February 2023 recorded 7,555 murders for the period, a 10% increase year on year. South Africa currently has a police to population ratio of 1 to 430. Just 3 days ago, a lady by the name of Winnie was gunned down by her alleged boyfriend. Gender-based violence and femicide is no longer a scourge, but a pandemic in this country and must be treated as such. Last year, we were relieved to hear that thousands of new recruits will increase, feet on the streets, but according to the SAPS 2021-2022 annual report, of 12,000 entry-level members, 10,000 will be replaced personnel losses, and 2,000 will result in increase to the establishment. With 1,158 police stations across the country, 2,000 new recruits won't go as far. The recruitment process of police officers should not be flawed. The qualifying should be given an opportunity, and cadre and nepotism must stop. Add on this, not only 1% of these police stations are considered to be in excellent condition. 69% are fair and another 15% considered very poor. How are our men and women in blue expected to perform their duties in such conditions? We would like to query the state of the 54,954 transport assets. At what stage is a police vehicle retired? Thousands of these vans are visibly dilapidated. Instant and squandering hundreds of millions in irregular and fruitless expenditure. Consider rather investing in proper police vehicles. And there is money for resources. SAP spent almost 325 million on contractors, almost double the 188 million of the last financial year. This is unacceptably high. We are in the House skills. The IFP also remains concerned about the issues relating to illegal firearms. While we welcome the department transition of the firearm licenses application process from a tedious manual process to an online process, we again plead with the SAPs to work on improving the rate at which processes applications relating to firearms. The IFP also knows the work that has been done to reduce the DNA testing backlog. We call on the SAPs to remain a high turnover rate and ensure testing is done regularly so that the backlog stays as close as to zero possible. While we commend IPID for its work, a high rate of cases being investigated and finalized, we call on them to aim for 100% resolution of cases so that no person is denied justice. It is essential to restore public confidence in the police. Much work needs to be done to keep South Africans safe. We appreciate that also Mrs. Cele is the one that is assisting the minister in becoming assistant minister so that our minister becomes sane, but work must be done at the end of the day. The IFP supports.
The next speaker is the Honorable Groenewald.
Geachte voorsitter, deur u, Honorable Minister, what happened in Graskop symbolizes the crime situation in South Africa. What happened at Graskop? A bunch, and I call them a bunch of criminals of about 13, 14, coming to the town with AK-47s, R4 rifles, by the way, you can only get from the SANDF, with explosives. They took over the town, blow up shops, and they just loot and they leave. The community said, enough is enough. They went to the police station, lock it up, and said that they must get rid of the police station commander. But then they started with arrest of the community for doing that. That symbolizes what is going on in crime in South Africa. Because the communities must protect themselves. If you look, for instance, at crime statistics, you will see that mob justice, murders for the last financial year in 3 quarters, 1,536 murders took place by means of mob justice. And Honorable Chair, I want to say that if we look at crime statistics, we know that it is not 100% accurate. In fact, I think it's much higher. But it gives an indication of the crime situation in South Africa. And let's take the last financial year. I believe we're going to receive the 4th quarter results next Wednesday. If we look at the 3 quarters of last financial year, we will see that, for instance, that for the 2nd quarter, all 17 categories of crimes has increased. On the 3rd quarter, all the contact crimes, all of them, has increased. There's no stop in the number of crimes, violent crimes in South Africa. If we look at women and children, if you look at those 3 quarters, you will find that 2,945 women had been killed and 877 children. And yes, we hear about the backlog of forensics that has been completed and there's no backlog, but still you must read the newspapers of rape cases where the victims are still waiting more than 2 years for the DNA test. You cannot blame the community if they came to a situation where they said, we must protect ourselves. And I want to say, and I always say it, I salute those hardworking, true members in the South African police services who really will be able to put their own lives in the front line to protect us. But Honorable Chair, we must get to a point in South Africa where we say, what are we going to do about crime in South Africa? And Honorable Minister, whether you like it or not, the buck stops with you, because this is Parliament, this is politics. It stops with you. And the people of South Africa wants to hear from you as Minister, what you are going to do to stop these increases. There are about 28,000 investigators in South Africa. It's impossible for them to investigate all the crimes that is taking place. Ek wil vir die agbare minister ook sê, ons moet ons nie laat mislei deur die stabilisering van plaasmoorde en die aantal boere wat vermoor word en ook baie van hulle werkers nie. Die rede daarvoor is omdat die gemeenskappe hulle eie veiligheid in hulle hande neem. Ek was by Nampo. By Nampo is daar elke jaar meer en meer sekuriteitsmaatskappye wat hulle toerusting uitstal ter beskerming van die boere. Hulle stel die voorbeeld van om hulle self te beskerm. But unfortunately, Honorable Minister, you owe the people of South Africa an answer. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable KRJ Meshu.
Thank you, House Chairperson. In real terms, the SAP's budget has decreased this year by 5% to 102.13 billion rands. And in terms of the IP budget, it has also decreased by 4.45%, and CSPS budget has decreased by 5.7% for this current year. The ACDP wants to know how government is planning to reduce this ever-increasing crime when the budget of the police is continually being reduced. The conviction rate for reported house robberies, vehicle robberies, and hijackings is sadly under 10%. Combined with our unemployment rate of 39%, this is definitely a crisis. If government wants to improve the conviction rates, then major changes should be done in the Department of Police, IPID, and Civilian Secretariat for the police. Between October and December last year, there were 12,419 rapes. And in July last year, 8 women making a music video were raped in Krugersdorp by a gang of gunmen in Balaclavas. Chairperson, to reverse this negative trend of low conviction rates, SAPS must fix our DNA laboratories and ensure that victims of rape do not face rapists in court before the DNA results have been finalized. Detectives should be empowered to finalize cases by providing them with complete forensic evidence. Prosecutors are frustrated when court cases are withdrawn because of DNA delays. The allocation for forensic laboratories faces a decrease in real terms of 2.66%. The department needs to consider the call by the Independent Policing Union to decentralize the forensic science laboratories so that provinces can be able to speed up the results that are being produced in those labs. The ACDP fully supports this call by the unions. We believe that IP budget that is only 3.64% of 3.64 million, which is seriously inadequate for the purpose, is not helpful. How can 175 investigators deal with a police force of 190,000 plus Metro police officers? There is a backlog of 14,000 cases, and investigators have case loads of 200 to 250.
Honorable member, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Deputy Minister of Police.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister of Police, Peggy, the Chair of the Committee, Mayor Tina Jumat, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for the opportunity to deliver this input to our budget vote, which is taking place in the midst of our continued efforts to find new and innovative interventions to discharge our enormous responsibility of keeping our nation safe. Honorable Chair, I heard Honorable Groenewald saying that there are rape victims that are waiting for results for over a period of 2 years. And I would like to challenge that and ask that we be given those cases so that we can go and investigate, because we have been working very closely with the prosecution authority around the issues of DNA. And as far as we are concerned, we don't have that, but I'll be happy to receive that, Honorable Groenewald, so that we deal with that. The issues that were raised by Honorable Shembane, I think those are personal issues and hatred towards the minister. You can't say convincingly that the African National Congress that is governing this country is a clique, unless the interpretation of that has changed with your understanding. We appreciate the constructive criticism that were presented here, Honorable Majosi and some of members from the opposition. We appreciate that, very constructive. We want that. We always believe that where wrong is seen, wrong must be confirmed as having seen, and we don't have to stand here and gloss over that. So I thought it appropriate, Chair, to acknowledge that, but thank you for supporting our budget vote. We remain fully aware of the pressing obligation to continue pursuing every effort that will realize a crime-free South Africa, where the populace and everyone within our borders will live without fear of being attacked or becoming victim of criminality, where our women and children do not live in fear of falling victim to gender-based violence and femicide. Honorable members, this year's budget vote is held post the stormiest years of our recent history, just as we thought we were emerging from the devastating consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic and the consumerate lockdown that affected not only the economy, but the nature and focusing of policing. We found some provinces of the country engulfed by floods, civil unrest, and many other unexpected turn of events. As a result of several unexpected turn of events that usually out of our control, we find ourselves in a predicament of multi-challenges as a country, aggravated by the impact of the electricity crisis on the economy and on the safety of our communities. The underlying paradox of it all is that irrespective of the nature of these challenges, the inability to adequately address them from a socio-economic perspective results in this ultimately becoming a safety and security problem in one way or another. The complexity requires that our approaches and interventions to enhance policing and promote safety in communities be intensified, multi-pronged, and integrated. Effective policing always requires the involvement and collaboration with relevant stakeholders, including the security industry, the business sector, all government institutions, and most importantly, our communities. I must indicate that community and stakeholder engagement in crime prevention and combating are not new concepts within government or the police environment. We have over the years belabored the point that we need all hands on deck if we are to win the battle against crime. And we have seen that within the areas where communities are actively collaborating with the police, crime reduces considerably. We are continuing to encourage intensified involvement of the community with the plea that you cannot sit with information that will make your own community safer and ensure that your children can enjoy all the rights and privileges bestowed upon them by the Constitution. Honorable members, crime has a severe impact on the quality of life of all South Africans, particularly the poor. High level of crime also affect efforts to stimulate growth, increase investment, and reduce poverty. As you are all aware, investments and growth require a safe, stable, and crime-free environment. Most importantly, it is a fundamental to the aspirations of all people to live in security, peace, comfort, and prosperity. It is with this in mind that a police visibility, effective training, and better resourcing of police stations are government's priorities. Let me at this point applaud President Cyril Ramaphosa's visionary decision to continue to direct significant resources and effort to fight crime and keep communities around the country safe despite the shrinking government purse. This will indeed go a long way in increasing police visibility on our streets and thereby act as a further deterrent to criminal activities, especially in crime hotspots. Minister has spoken to the 12,000 new police trainees that have been recruited to ensure that the South African Police Service urgently gets the capacity it needs. These additional resources have enabled us to start embarking on programs that are intended to fight crime head-on. For the past 2 weeks, throughout the country, over the weekends, we have been engaging in operations to fight crime in our streets, and we have made tremendous progress in this regard. This has been made possible by this intervention by President Ramaphosa. The additional personnel will assist SAPS to, in addition to the priorities that Minister mentioned earlier, strengthen its response to the growing problem of criminal groups that extort money from construction and other businesses. Of late, there has been a growing outcry of these extortion groups demanding protection fees, even from people letting their own back rooms as a source of livelihood. We are determined not to allow this to disrupt the lives of South African citizens. Hence, there has been, among others, collaborative efforts led by the South African Police Service together with the Prosecution Authority to combat these crimes of economic disruption. Pursuant to cabinet intervention and having realized the extent to which crime and inadequate security contributed to ESCOM's challenges, government has implemented the following interventions to deal with these issues. SAPS-led Priority Committee for Energy Security, a 24-hour mission area joint operational center at ESCOM Megawatt Park in Sunning Hill, planned operations as well as executed actions. These planned operations and executed actions are focused on combating crime incident at ESCOM sites and other associated electrical infrastructure in an attempt to secure the power grid. A total of 461 ESCOM case dockets were opened related to illegal and unregulated coal and fuel yards in partnership with the Department of Fisheries, Forestry and Environmental Affairs and DMR. SAPS organized crime units and the DPCI jointly reported a total of 120 dockets that were registered, which resulted in 98 arrests from January this year to date. We are on course. We will continue to fight and deal with the challenges that we are confronted with as a country, led by Minister Begikele and General Masemola, IPID and the Civilian Secretariat, because we together constitute what one calls the police family. We are mindful of the challenges that are there in IPID, particularly the filling of vacant posts, and we have instructed the management to finalize these issues because we believe it is critical that they should be fully functional and appropriately resourced. Chair, I would
Honorable
like,
Deputy Minister, your time is now expired.
thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Amnesty International reports and the evidence points a damning picture of discrimination and ruthless and excessive force by Israelis against Palestinian people. Now, House Chairperson, I heard someone say on this side that the buck stops on this side of the police force. I'm not in agreement with that. The buck stops with politicians. We are the root cause of why our police officers are dying. 35 of them die every year in this country. And you know, Minister, when I saw your trainees during the weekend, I actually pitied them because my heart broke for them, wondering which one of those are going to be next once they're on the ground. At what? 13 Rand a day danger allowance, which we've now increased to 23 Rand. We haven't done them a favor. How many of you, I ask you again, honestly speaking, will put your children in that danger zone for 23 Rand a day? Taking the taxis and the buses, the public, so how many of you are willing to do that? None of you are willing to do that, but all it is, we blame the police officers. The police did not tell somebody to rape somebody. They did not tell them to go and commit a crime. It's we. If you went to Kimberley on the weekend, there's a 68% unemployment rate. Hundreds of taverns with 80,000 people only living there. Off sales, bottle stores, 60 some odd of them. 127, I think if that's the number correct, of second-hand dealers. These are what is happening. So the problem is just that we are creating the problem. Now, what do you say? What do you say to people like Donovan Prince's family, who was brutally murdered in Steenberg Villa? What do you say to Ashwin Pedro? What do you say to Constable Breakfast's family in the Eastern Cape and Sergeant Mdoko's family? All we do is when they die mercilessly at the hands of criminals, what are we doing? We are going there, of course, condolence motions, and then what happens? We forget about them. Have you forgotten that it is those police officers that are out there while we're living on the gravy train, that are going out there, sacrificing their life just to protect us and our families in this country? What are we doing to help them? Very little or nothing. That is why we say, Minister, that is why we say there should be no tax for police officers up to a certain grade. We agree with that. We say that unless you give them and pay them well, they will be tempted to corruption. They will be tempted to looting because politicians are the ones that attract them with the corrupt activities. So we are saying, pay your police officers, pay them well so they would be motivated. Give them decent housing. I've heard you're going to deploy a lot of those trainees to different provinces. Where must they go and live? Give them the housing that they deserve. Give them the benefits that they deserve. But more importantly, let politicians take responsibility for why the country is in the state in which it is today. It's not the police officers. They are there to prevent crime. You are creating the conducive environment, and they must go and protect the people of this country. Thank you very much. The NFP supports this. Thank you.
Thanks, honorable members. Our next speaker is Honorable Pico. 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. Before I can start with my speech, ek wil net graag met die oppositie praat. In vergaderings wat ons het, motiveer julle baie en julle se insittings is baie goed. Maar as julle op die podium staan, dan praat julle iets anders. En die belangrikste is wat ons sê, soos die ANC sê ons kan nie die baba met die water uitgooi nie. We will save the child. We won't allow that water should be thrown with the baby. What we are going to do is to save the child. And dis wat ons wat ons gesê vandag, ons kom standard for that. That's why we are saying we expected you to support this budget. I thank you. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister of Police General Bheki Cele, Honorable Deputy Minister Ntate Kasal Matale, National Commissioner General Fani Masimula and SABS delegation, Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Metina Jumat Peterson, members of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members, fellow South Africans. In a country with renowned and most progressive of constitutions, which guarantees equality and dignity for all, the women of South Africa and children will live in fear of violence every day. As we debate on this budget vote, we wish to pay our most sincere condolences to the families and loved ones of victims of gender-based violence and femicide. Gender-based violence has long plagued South Africa, and it remains a persistent issue that has taken the lives and haunted citizens and brought the entire country to a standstill on many occasions. As such, President Ramaphosa declared it the second pandemic. The reason for gender-based violence are many. A significant factor, however, the high level of unemployed South African men is a contributor to gender-based violence, as most men who cannot provide for their families vent their anger on women and children. This is not justification for the violence against women. Gender empowerment is important for uprooting patriarchy and achieving gender equality. Chairperson SABS has declared its historic DNA backlog. I would love Honorable Shembeni to listen to what I'm gonna say. It was reported that as on the 16th of February 2023, the DNA backlog, which was initially over 241,000, was at 1,600. There was an improvement. Who directly, this marked a 99.3% reduction in the country's DNA backlog figure. There was a reduction. We welcome the completion of the building and capacitation of laboratory in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. It will drastically relieve pressure from the Western Cape laboratory going forward. Last February, the Minister of Police reported that there has been 9% drop in reported rape case. According to latest crime stats, and that dedicated gender-based violence desk were now available at 381 police stations across the country. Awareness campaigns are considered to have contributed to the reduction in the reported cases due to gender-based violence. Chairperson, progressive pieces of legislation passed during the sixth administration include what are commonly known as the 3 GBV Acts, among which is the Domestic Violence Amendment Act. This act is meant to provide women with the highest form of protection from domestic violence, placing responsibility squarely on organs of states, particularly the South African Police Service, to ensure that survivors of domestic violence are able to apply for protection order. With the rise in intimate femicide and many abused women being failed by the system, it was evident that the implementation of the principal act was imbued with inefficiencies, hence the need for the Amendment Act. Among the others, the Amendment Act aims to extend the power of members of South African Police Service and peace officers to arrest persons in connection with domestic violence, further regulate the obtaining of protection order against domestic violence and the powers of the court with regard to the wellness or the welfare of affected children, to provide for domestic violence safety monitoring notice that may be issued by the court. Lastly, to provide for the attendance of witnesses at the domestic violence proceedings. The Domestic Violence Amendment Act facilitates the obtainment or the obtaining of protection order against acts of domestic violence electronically. In the age of technology and growing use of cell phone and the internet, this moves enable more women, people are victims of domestic violence, to obtain protection order without having to physically go to a police station day or night. Chairperson, over the medium term, the department key focus will be implementing the national policing strategy. Key among the interventions are these strategies proposes are improving community safety, reducing gender-based violence and femicides, and combating serious and organized crime. Total expenditure is expected to increase at an average annual rate of 3.9% from 102.6 billion in 2022-2023 to 114.9 billion in 2025-2026, mainly due to the allocation of additional funding of 5.8 billion over the medium term period for the cost living adjustments and 7.8 billion for strengthening capacity at police stations. Over the medium term, the department visible policing and detective service program will implement intervention in line with the national policing strategy that are aimed at combating gender-based violence and femicide and support to the victim. And the interventions are as follow: establishing a fully functioning gender-based desk, developing, implementing, and monitoring action plan of gender-based violence and sexual offenses at police stations, the continued implementation of measures to eradicate the DNA tracing and verification backlog linked to crime scenes. The integrated crime and violence prevention strategy adopted by government to address the strife of crime must be fast-tracked in order to boost safety and security in the communities and a country as a whole. Honorable Chair, over the medium term, we encourage the Hawks to further address the deficiency identified by the Financial Action Task Force and implementation of recommendations to intensify investigation to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. This will assist South Africa to move away from being red listed. The Hawks continue to be undercapacitated and underfunded. However, over the six administration, the personal deficit has reduced, but most needs to be done to fully capacitate its elite crime fighting bodies. Despite the undercapacitation, the Hawks are doing extremely well and having significant achievement in 2022. And I won't be able to mention that because the minister have covered all the achievements made by the Hawks. As I conclude, Chairperson, we pay tribute and dedication to the hardworking men and women in blue. It is a thankless job that attracts most criticism, but the ANC sees the effort and we salute. Hence, we support this budget of today. I thank you. Ke a leboga, baya dankie.
Honorable member, Sibuisa rona se se latelang ke Motlotlegi Jafta.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the police ministry is one of the most undervalued ministries in the country. We argue that this assessment may be justified. This is not intended to undermine some of the sterling work of the police service, such as the outstanding work of crime intelligence through its intelligence covert operations. This budget must therefore be contextualized. The South African Police Service had 182,126 staff complement at the end of 2020-21 year, the financial year. Resignations have disseminated capacity of SAPS. This has been worsened by internal corruption and acts of misconduct in the police service, as reported by the IPD in its annual reports. We also note the challenges driven in the service, such as poor policing and crowd management and poor implementation of national rural safety strategy. There is, however, some achievements according to which this budget must target. This includes functional police stations, and network operations focused on narcotics, illicit trade of ferrous and non-ferrous metals, fraud, corruption, gang and public violence. We also note the achievements of crime intelligence in fighting off the full spectrum of drug supply chain and trafficking. Honorable members, these achievements are only limited, and the minister has one area's work to harness the capacity of the police service. While we have always welcomed the independence of the police investigative directorate, we caution against complacency. No police officer must evade the full might of the law if they have committed crime. The independence of IPD is central to our democracy and to the security of our people. The vetting and lifestyle audits of police officers must proceed with speed. We cannot afford to expose the ministry to countless acts of corruption and gross misconduct. We must put resources to stem the tide against gender-based violence. This is the biggest calamity the minister has to tackle with full speed. Support the budget vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Cope. Okay, Honorable Hendricks.
Thank you very
On
much.
Visual platform, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, we would like to commend the Portfolio Committee for their oversight role to ensure that there is a clean audit. Well done, the Chair. Also, as you know, Honorable Chair, South Africa has the best police minister in Africa, and Jama-ah supports the work of our Minister of Police and wish him strength to bring crime to an end in South Africa. However, Honorable Chair, Jama-ah calls on the South African police to arrest and charge the 2 Jewish bodies based in Cape Town for supporting racism, a violation of international law which South Africa has signed. It is a criminal offense to support racism and apartheid Israel. The United Nations resolution on apartheid makes it mandatory on all member states to support the resolution against apartheid. Amnesty International has recognized apartheid as a crime and has called for the Israel authorities to be held accountable for apartheid crimes. Section 232 of the Constitution, international law is law in the Republic. So it is very important for the police to do their work. We know the minister is very busy in curbing crime in South Africa, and we have commended him, but he must not neglect his duties when South Africa has signed agreements to combat crime. Jama-ah supports the Media Review Network for extending their unwavering support to the Palestinian Support Forum students at UCT who are facing attacks from the Zionist lobby in Cape Town. We salute and commend the University of Cape Town, who have been in the news for refusing to axe them. Jama-ah also welcomes the increase of 3.9% capacity for strengthening capacity of the police stations. Well done, Minister of Finance. Jama-ah supports this budget.
Thank you very much, Honorable Hendricks. Honorable Terre Blanche. 6 minutes.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members and fellow South Africans. Einstein's definition of insanity is doing same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Insanely, this is exactly what happens in South Africa. We are here again to approve another incremental driven budget, but it's still the same clumsy, top-heavy organization with the same outdated and often out-of-touch approach. The predictable outcome is that crime will remain out of control. The top 30 police stations in the country are only topped in terms of highest crime statistics, not for crime detection or prevention. This has been the legacy since President Thabo Mbeki's reign, and it is unacceptable. Notably, visible policing and detective services are neglected repeatedly. When Section 205 of the Constitution makes it clear that these areas are part of the crucial focus areas for policing. In contrast, the budget doesn't support the strategic importance and both remains underfunded. Protection services are yet again overfunded and frankly raise serious concerns about the police inability to prioritize. The protection of VIPs can never be regarded as more important than serving the public. The impact of the recent exodus from the police by offering attractive early retirement packages has disseminated police skills and capabilities and eroded their ability to perform duties that simply cannot be replenished in the short term. Middle management has largely been demolished, experience lost, and few left to pass the baton on to the next level. Both Minister Bheki Cele and our National Commissioner Mashimola are stubbornly resisting the devolution of police functions to lower government levels. In reality, the skyrocketing serious crime stats and the severity thereof is generating a momentum of its own, steering that direction, and it simply cannot be stopped anymore. Cape Town's lead officer successes are steadily filtering through and has already led to the establishment of other units in Gauteng, Nelson Mandela Bay, and others. These institutions found loopholes in other legislation to appoint these units as a deterrent for criminals in the areas where they govern. This trend is gaining traction, and legislation like the Police Amendment Bill will have to be finalized urgently to accommodate the new emerging policing model. This trend must be welcomed as it will speed up partnership policing where the public actively participate in the policing of their respective areas. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, has demonstrated its inability to fulfill its mandate. A lack of funding and professional leadership means that as at 28 February, there were still 14,063 active cases, with over 10,000 being backlog cases. This number is growing daily, forcing IPID to randomly pick cases to be investigated, setting a target of only 7% of cases to be prosecuted by the National Prosecuting Authority. Likewise, the Civilian Secretariat for Police Services also fails to fulfill its mandate to provide oversight over the SAPs for safer and more secure communities through communication, community participation, legislation, and policy development. This department is leaderless at the moment, with very negative consequences. So now the question is, what can be done to rectify the situation? The South African Constitution Bill of Rights aims to ensure inter alia the safety and security of all South Africans, and the following steps will go a long way to bring that about. Firstly, transformation of the police service, demilitarization, flattening of the rank and organizational structures, professionalization by reintroducing promotion exams and academic qualification as a basis for promotion to higher levels. Introduction of new suitable policing model like total policing, community participation, appointment and training of reservists, devolution of powers, streamlining and devolution of procurement functions to lower levels, technology like cameras, drones, etc. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, through professional leadership. SAPS cannot be led by a compromised minister. Serious allegations against the minister must still be investigated, and we just don't get there. The National Commissioner has no security clearance and thus unable to perform his job.
Honorable Terreblanche, your date is not clear.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm also clear.
Honorable Marekwa. Honorable Marekwa, Honorable Peacock saved 1 minute for you in addition to the 10 minutes you have. So you've got 11 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson, Honorable House Chair, the Minister of Police and the Deputy Minister, honorable members of Parliament, delegation from SAPS and all other visitors present here today. The ANC supports the budget vote. Let me start making it clear. I wish to begin with the quote, Chairperson, by our first democratically elected president, Nelson Mandela, who on the occasion of the launch of crime prevention said the following, I quote, "We are long past blaming all our difficulties on our past, but it is at our peril that we ignore the roots of South Africa's high levels of crime in the apartheid era. It left us with a justice system pervaded with lawlessness and criminality. It eroded the moral fabric of our society. Its legacy of poverty will take years to eradicate. For all these reasons, our fight against the unacceptable levels of crime must be a many-sided one and have the active participation of every sector of society," close quote. Chairperson, the national development, which is the brainchild of the ANC government, the National Development Plan 2030 sets out a vision for safer communities, recognizing the need to address the drivers of crime and violence and acknowledging that crime and violence are not the sole responsibility of the police. Chapter 12 of the NDP 2030 also further states that, and also the white paper on safety and security of 2016 and the white paper on safety and security also mentioned those areas. This gives us the expression to the proposal of the national development by setting out an overarching framework for integrated action to prevent crime and violence. The national development further requires, among others, that we build safer communities, promote accountability, and fight corruption and strengthen judicial governance and the rule of law. When we talk crime fighting crime in our communities, the ANC government has and is always committed in fighting crime against fraud and corruption and maladministration in all areas where it seems to exist. In strengthening the fight against crime and corruption, the 2023 ANC Lekgotla noted progress on key areas in the security sector. This includes the additional recruitment of police officers and the strengthening of key institutions such as the National Prosecution Authority, the NPA. And in terms of the recruitment of police, we saw over the weekend the number of young people that have given up and joined the police. And we are making a call that fighting crime is all of our responsibilities. Doesn't matter race or whatever, we have to be there to fight crime.
The Lekgotla also called for an integrated program which will ensure that South Africa is a crime-free society by 2030. Key actions will include, among others, assessing and strengthening community policing forums, strengthening witness protection, and improving the management of migration. The ANC Lekgotla also echoed the January 8 statement in relation to the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, and called for consideration to be placed on having a specialized unit just to deal with GBVF in our country. As President Mandela alluded, fighting crime requires a collaborated, many-sided approach. Moreover, fighting crime and corruption also requires a budget. Chairperson, in his 2023 budget speech, the Minister of Finances indicated that government would be doing a number of things, including strengthening the capacity of the state and delivery of quality public services, investing in infrastructure and fighting crime and corruption. The minister also indicated the need to crack down on criminality in the construction sector, and that extortion and intimidation of lawfully appointed contractors and their workers will not be tolerated any longer. On illicit trade, the minister indicated that over the past 3 years, the South African Revenue Services has taken several steps to enhance its effectiveness in combating illicit trade, particularly in tobacco. In February 2023, SARS has completed 2,316 seizures of cigarettes and tobacco products to the value of 598 million rands. The minister announced that 14 billion has been allocated to the medium term to fight crime and corruption, with the SAPS getting that allocated amount of 7.8 billion. One of the weak points which have been identified in the criminal justice system is a silo approach in the fight against crime and fraud and corruption. Notwithstanding the existing challenges, we can appreciate the levels of collaboration and coordination between the Investigative Directorate, Asset Forfeiture Unit, the Specialized Commercial Crime Unit, Special Investigating Unit, and the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation. We encourage the different role players in the justice value chain to continue working together in order to fight crime and make South Africa a safer place. We call on all municipalities to continue strengthening their bylaws in ensuring that they address the most of the potential crimes even before they are committed. This relates to areas of the selling of alcohol, among others, within our municipal boundaries. As we note that most of the crimes, including GBVF, GBV, gender-based violence and femicide, are as a result of the use of or abuse of alcohol and other intoxicating substances. Chairperson, the third quarter crime figures show that while there are increases in contact crimes such as murder, assault, and robberies, there is a significant improvement in crimes detected as a result of police action, and that we need to applaud our men and women in blue. It has been reported that there are signs of improvement in crimes such as cash in transit heist and bank robberies, which have reported decreases in the period of reporting. These decreases are attributed to the increased police visibility through patrols, stop and search operations, vehicle checkpoints, and roadblocks. The importance of visible policing cannot be emphasized enough. Community policing forums were foundational, Chairperson, into the South African transition into democracy. When first established, they provided a bridge between the police and the community. In a context of a deep mistrust and hostility towards the police, with the alarming levels of crime, it is important to reflect that the 2014 report of the Khayelitsha Commission shows that communities with the most crime may also have least functional CPFs, which is the community policing forums. It is for this reason that There is a need to work with and enhance the role of community policing forums in bringing the police and communities together in an effort to solve challenges of crime. If we work together, we can really make our country safe. We appreciate and welcome the efforts by IPID towards establishing offices in more of the towns, and that will be including the Namakwaland in the Northern Cape. We welcome the work done by the DPCI in ensuring that those who kill police officers are brought to book. In the strongest possible term, we condemn the killing of people, especially those entrusted with the duty of ensuring the safety of everyone in this country. In conclusion, Chairperson, the government will continue to ensure that all citizens, including all vulnerable groups, are protected and taken care of, and in terms of their safety in the streets of this country. We all want a safer South Africa. Let me also find, as I close, that the only thing, to quote that, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Now it's up to us to ask, who are those good men? ANC supports this budget vote, Chairperson. I thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. For the next 5 minutes, we'll give the minister to do a wrap-up.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks to the members that have contributed constructively. Honorable Member White says he didn't hear us saying anything about the police that lose their lives on the line of duty. You read the speech, you'll see that so much has been said. But we're not only saying things about that. For instance, I was part of the funeral of the police that was killed in court in Kabeja, a 42-year-old sergeant. He's got 15, 7, and 4 years old. They are taken care of, all those that they are giving the police bursary. All the members of the police that die on the line of duty are taken care of until all of them, they pass the first degree of their life. And that trust was created by a certain national commissioner in 2010, who was the national commissioner of the police. Never existed before that until then. More than 1,000 students have been taken care of. And we're not just talking about it, we're giving support to those orphans of the police that die on the line of duty. We are calling to the communities, we're calling on the communities to be part of that and to make sure that we fight the scourge of killing the police, and police themselves to be more vigilant when it comes to that matter. Now, Honorable Khonevat, I think the Deputy Minister has spoken. Please bring those cases forward so that we take care. Unfortunately, Mfundisi has just left. Maybe that's why he's very backdated, because he speaks and he leaves. He never sits down to listen when he gets the answers. All these things we're saying here about DNA are all outdated. Everything he said is outdated. So I'm not going to, but I'll try, because Mfundisi, to sit down with him and update him about these matters. Okay. Going forward. But thanks to the members, all of them that have raised, we are taking things that you have said on board, and we hope they will take us forward. Honorable Teleplage. No, he was a general when he left. He was responsible for building the police stations. That was his job. I remember him very well. Maybe he's going to remember that we met in the plane. You were from KZN to look after the station called Nzuze. That you promised me that it will be built, has not been built. Hang on. You were responsible for building the police station. Instead of building the police station, I'm not going to tell what you did. But the crux of the matter It's no use for you to come here and throw the stones as if you were not part of it. You are part of the problem that the police are saving now. You are general, we gave you the budget and you did not, as I speak now, you took a flight from Johannesburg to Pretoria there to go, and you told me that in 3 months that police station will be built. That was 2010 that you were responsible. So, therefore, ungezila uzozenza ungcwele, kube kuwena oshiya izinto zamapeketwane nabantu osebenza nabo le. Kufanele usho uchaze izono zakho. Uchaze izono zakho uthi okungenzeki nawe kwakuhlula wawukhona wanikwa ithuba wangakwenza uyeza la zoba ngumsindo la as if wawungekho wawukhona. Therefore, it's important to be honest. It's important to have a conscience to tell the truth of what happens during your time. And indeed, you were there. You didn't do anything. That's why even today you are facing those backlogs. So I'm inviting you once in a lifetime to tell the truth. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, thank you very much. I just want to remind you of two things. The first one is that the debate on public enterprises budget vote will be taking place at 4:15 here at Good Hope Chamber. The second reminder, budget vote for public works and infrastructure will take place at 4:15 at room M46. This concludes the debate of today, and the mini plenary will now rise.